Of the tools the devil operating is when the children of God is weak. You see, when the children of God is weak, devil derive joy. Because when you are weak, you might not be able to, pray. When you are weak, you cannot be able to connect to the Father. When you are weak, you cannot be able to do anything because of weaknesses. And you see that even when hour by 12 o'clock that you're supposed to wake up to pray, you find yourself so heavy and so thick to an extent that you cannot be able to pray. And maybe you might postpone it and say tomorrow, then where I will pray tomorrow, the next day. You see, every of your time you'll be having next day. But ask yourself, won't there be a next day? Now at the end of the day, you continue to give excuses. Devil love to play his tactics with excuses. You see that people will be filled with excuses and weaknesses. And he will give you blunt day. He will give you hectic day. To an extent that even when it's time to pray, you say, oh, I've worked so much, I've labored. Even your husband will encourage you, baby, relax. You don't need to, stress yourself for this prayer. God answers prayer and God hears and he knows. And you'll be deceived and God knows. Even you have been a man, you will tell yourself, oh, I have something to do tomorrow. So waking up this early morning or odd hour to pray, I don't really have that strength. But I've made my prayer by 8 o'clock. I've made my prayer by 9 o'clock. I've made my prayer, PM. But you don't know that odd hour, 12 o'clock prayer is wonderful. That's the reason why, devil knows how to play his way. So at that moment, you'll be subdued by weakness of the flesh. You'll be subdued by the powers of the darkness. Because around 12 o'clock, you see that the devil wakes up. They will be awake, trying to manipulate people, those that are sleeping. And at the end of the day, you see that if you wake up, what your good intention probably might change. Maybe you see someone, you say that someone have disrupted the activities or whatever. You see that even the Bible said it, when men sleep, the enemy came to sow tares. The moment they verge that you are asleep around 12 o'clock to, short period of time that you're going to sleep. If you don't take care of, if you're not being careful, you see that the devil will manipulate you. At the end of the day, problem will be escalating in the world. We'll be facing troubles that we don't know how it come about. It's because of our weakness in prayer. It's because we are so weak and so thick to understand that we find it not relevant to pray. But the moment a man that is spiritual is awake by 12 o'clock, the moment a man that is spiritual is awake by that hour that the enemy want to do their operation, he will subdue him within that vicinity or jurisdiction or their modus operandum. You see that you'll be active because they know that you are active. But the devil, if he captures you or any compound or any house, that this compound, they lack the strength to pray. This compound, they feel that they are more civilized people, that they don't need to pray. And they are okay, conversant, and they are okay. If you check yourself very well, a compound that is so quiet to an extent does not really communicate with God. Sometimes you tell the devil that you are a terror. You terrorize him even in his own territory. Because the devil knows his own territory. You tell the devil, I am a terror to this, I must terrorize you. But because we lack knowledge of this, you see that we cannot be able to be actively participate in the things of God. If we find it so cumbersome to do the things of God. But that's not what God wants. Each and every one of us has a mountain that is covering. But because we lack knowledge of what God can do, that is the reason why at the end of the day, we say that we had a bad day, we had this, we that, and we cannot be able to, do things the way it ought to be, like praying at that moment. Even though you give your time, like yourself, like give yourself, like, let's say, even if it is 30 minutes, but at that verge that the operation starts, that moment you pray and ask the Lord, because the devil operates within a short period of time. It maybe started from 12, they operate from 12 to getting to 3, because they know that by 3, some people might have been out or awake to do some certain things, but the operation stops at 4. You said they'll be going. So at that moment that you're active, praying and asking the Lord, let his will be done. You see that the devil will be scared. And you say that we know that compound. Let us not just go there. He'll be telling his people, let us not just go there, because that man must surely be active. But when the devil discovered that strategy that you don't normally be active, in that moment, he'll be operating, putting all negative things in people's mind. You might be sleeping, the devil will be using you and ripping you off. But this is the time that you tell the devil, get out of here. God is here. God is the owner of this place. God owns this territory. I am here. You cannot operate here because the power has been given to me. Because even the Bible said that he has given us all the power. But the devil's way, he has given us the power to stop him. Not to. Even the Bible says, resist the devil and you flee. You tell the devil, I resist you. You can never be able to operate here. See, spirituality control physical. If you don't know, spiritual everything that you see that is happening today is a cause of spirituality. But if you do not study the causes, maybe spirituality, you see that you'll be lagging behind. When others are connected, you'll be finding it so difficult to connect. But this is accepted time that we ought to do. We ought to be active. We ought to be active and give God what belongs to Him and shun the devil, and he will flee. But if you are so weak to understand that to communicate with God is so difficult to you, you will fail woefully. You might actually physically might get money, but spiritual things you fail. But at the end of the day, your body will be detached. Your soul will be detached from your body. You see that this body will go to grave. All the wealth that you make, you go to grave. But that spiritual one that needs empowerment, that spiritual one that needs education to understand, that spiritual one that needs courage, you see that will be put it into a hole, will be dealt with. You see that at the end of the day, God will say, I don't know you, because you did not walk in line where God wants. So we're supposed to be actively and participating every hour. No matter the city you are, even in New York, you are living in New York, you are living in anywhere, you have to be active. Even though you don't pray loud prayer, because then warfare prayer, you have to pray it in that moment. Be active in that 12 o'clock. Be praying to God and asking. Even those people that do research, they don't do research at the daytime, at the hot weather. No, they do research at hour whereby everybody's sleeping. You see that they'll be doing their research, getting some certain things. That is the spiritual hour. Everything is not about, even the car that you're driving is controlled by spiritual. Even anything, even that your computer, you see, Oyibo will build something and call it build a small chip, put it inside something, it will be working. And tomorrow they tell you they built a chip, they built this thing. What is that? After building that chip, they will speak a word, and that word they speak, you see that to be activated, working as the way. That is the reason why you say when small thing die or a diode, you see they say go and buy new one. Why is it that we cannot be able to control, build or manufacture our own diode and make it to work like them? It's because there's a spirituality behind those things they do. But that's by the way. So this is the hour that everybody ought to be active, participating in the things of God. And let your power dominate. Dominate every nook and cranny of the house and the compound and vicinity or the environment or the state. It is your right as a child of God. Do this every day. You see that you gain. You see that you get everything. Because at the end of the day, if you live in this world today and you not leave anything to your generation, you have failed your generation, you have failed your country, you have failed everybody. So you have to leave something for them. What legacy are you leaving? We don't need your legacy of money. What we need is legacy of impartation. Impact positively and pray and clear your way for your future generation. Because it's an accepted time that each and every one of us ought to connect to the Father. Because the Father wants us and wants us to do His will. For authority in Jesus. This hour, start to pray. It's your time.